Because
Thank
we got
you.
an
Good
extraordinary
afternoon,
call.
everyone. This is
Okay, there we go.
work session of the Town Council. Tonight, we're going to be talking about options for ballot language for Basalt Forward 2030. And at our last meeting, we got through a pretty thorough discussion. And during the course of the week, I know I had the opportunity to talk to individual councilors. I spent some time with our town manager. Gary Tenenbaum and I came in and
Recording in progress.
spent some time with Ryan and Christy. I've had some phone conversations with fellow councilors. And I think that what I gathered during the week was that while we concluded our work session last week in a kind of seemingly definitive note, I think there was a real sensation of sort of unsettledness about where we were going with the ballot language. And I think the concern really focused on an issue that Elise raised last week, which is that it looks like the optics of this were, and certainly not only the optics, but it looked like the reality was that we did a good job of soliciting public input. And, you know, what we heard was that the priorities were pretty much affordable housing and green initiatives and streetscape improvements. And then when we got into the arena of our boards and commissions and our facilities task force, that the sort of inside baseball team kind of had emerged with the town hall option. So I think the thought for getting back together is, you know, we're gonna, before we get under the bright lights tomorrow night, maybe taking a little quality time here to revisit these priorities. There's a second option that is in front of us tonight. I think everybody saw these, the alternative ballot language that would substitute the Midland streetscape improvements for the town hall as the top three priorities to be funded by this potential bond issue. So that's what we're here about. And, you know, honestly, my thanks to Gary and Elise and Glenn and David, everybody else that's really chipped in on this. And so tonight we want to talk about the alternative and see what the mood on council is, where we'd like to go. I talked to Glenn this afternoon. I think we were both in agreement that we would like to get this ideally as a unanimous decision or as close to unanimous as we can possibly get it, so that we don't send a confusing signal to our voting public. So that's the gist of the work session. So love to hear comment. Kibitzing is fine, you know. So whatever.
Roll call, real quick.
Roll call?
Can I take a roll
Yeah,
call?
work.
Oh, yeah. I only had 24 more minutes, so, no, I'm kidding. I'm done. No, I'm done. You can call the roll, Pam, thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's begin with Gary Tenenbaum.
Here.
And Bill Infante is joining us remotely.
Yeah, he's here.
Oh,
He's
good.
here.
I am here.
Thank you, Bill.
I am indeed.
Glenn Drummond,
Here.
David Knight,
Here.
Elise Hoddle,
Present.
Ryan Slack.
Here.
Thank you, Ryan. Bill Kane.
Bill Kane, here, yes.
The A-team is present, sir. Thank you.
I was eating.
Just thought maybe you needed a reminder.
Yeah, thanks. So, we good to go? So, it's a open mic night here, so anybody chip in that have thoughts and direction. And if you don't speak up, I'll keep talking, so you better start, you know, somebody better chip in here, I'll keep going.
Did you want to?
Whoever's manning the meeting here, is it possible to put up the language of the new ballot initiative?
I could probably do that. I'll find it. It's on the.
Yeah, just pull up your packet agenda, Pam.
Thank you.
So while we're waiting for Pam to do that, I will just introduce where we were last week and where we are this week. You know, last week, as the mayor said, we had left the meeting and had direction to follow through with the town hall and green initiatives and then affordable housing. And we had contemplated a total on that for project funding from the bond of approximately $14 million. The town hall, we got estimates from Phil Vaughn on that building at about $10 million, which included all the design costs and all other soft costs, project management, et cetera. And then throughout our discussion with council, when we heard of a potential interest to look at the Midland Avenue Streetscape project, you know, that is a more expensive project. So we did get in touch with Bruce Kimmel just to look at, you know, how we might finance that. So in all, you know, we are at about $11,500,000 for the Midland Avenue Streetscape project. Again, that is all in. It does have a contingency on it just because of the unknowns. It does include with it the deep utilities, which, you know, of course, adds to it some of those unknowns of, you know, getting buildings and businesses hooked up to those services. And then, you know, we'd be going through an intensive design phase with that. We also looked at increasing the affordable housing contribution as well, so that, you know, we're really sort of responding to what we heard from the public as they were giving feedback throughout the public input portion. And so all told, the project totals for this option 2, which includes the Midland Avenue affordable housing and green projects, we're at $19,500,000. Now, we can keep the annual payback. That's sort of how we backed into these costs in the first place, so that we can keep the tax level the same at $950,000 a year repayment. What we would do is just extend the payback by 5 years on that, so it would go from 20 to 25 years. In our discussions with Bruce Kimmel, it looks like the interest rate for that change of 5 years is still really favorable. It was still, you know, just under 2% is the latest that we got, so it's pretty amazing interest rate, in fact. And so just wanted to make sure that that understanding was out there, that, you know, the option 2 does cost more, but we can keep that ultimately that tax level the same just by extending out 5 more years there. And then before I stop here, we did also just ask Phil to join us tonight. So if there are questions about the costs, he can answer those. And then I think, I can't tell who's on anymore, but Wayne Freeman was going to join us here. Okay, okay, great. So if there are questions there as well, and then Christy can answer, a little bit more about the financing side. So, thanks.
Thank you. So, I mean, if I could ask a question about that, I mean,
Mike.
Streetscape was $11 million, and let's just talk about 2 scenarios. One is we stay with a 20-year term that will yield enough money to do 6 for affordable housing, 2 for green initiatives, and then 6 for Midland Avenue downtown improvements. So is there a belief on the part of the staff that we can buy $6 million worth of downtown improvements, or is this an all or nothing proposition?
We think, just given the risks of not replacing the deep utilities as part of this project, that if you go and you do all the nice amenities up at the street level, and you don't do those, then if you have to go back in 5 or 10 years, you know, you're doing a substantial, you know, ripping out of the amenities that you just put in. And that infrastructure in the ground is somewhere between 60 and 80 years old. The service line hookups for those, you know, don't meet today's spec of you know, an individual tap per business. A lot of them are you know, sort of daisy chained is the term used, or manifolded on where you have multiple services coming off of one small service. And so really getting those up to par, and then you have that assurance for the next 50 years that infrastructure in toto is, you know, in really good shape. So,
But even with a 25-year term, we raised 17 million instead of 14.
That's
and
right.
if we take the entire 11.5 on the streetscape, we're at $19 million. We're still short a couple $1 million, right?
That's right. So we have some options available to us for that. You know, we do have some federal funding that came our way that's, you know, earmarked for doing things like water and sewer infrastructure. So we could do that as an addition, and then, you know, the potential for council to use some of our fund balance that's over and above our fund balance policy of 40% that we could, you know, value add the project and get to that 19.5. And then the other piece to that is looking at grants. So we know that there are some Main Street grants, infrastructure grants out there. So to the extent we can utilize money and leverage the bond money, then we can certainly try that method too, and hold back on some of the other monies.
So there you have it, guys, you know. So there are, the options that are arrayed before us are stick with the original scheme of a 20-year term and do affordable housing, green initiatives in town hall, or entertain option 2, which is adding streetscape as opposed to town hall and keeping it at a 20-year term, or extending it to 25-year and then supplementing it with grants money to take on the top 3 projects. So floor's open.
Well, since I was the one that originally suggested this, I'm obviously pretty pleased that we've moved in this direction. I wish we had more money to put towards affordable housing and green initiatives, but it is what it is. I like the fact that if we do persevere in our grants and end up with more money from the bonding than we actually need, that we could use it towards early repayment, correct, Christy? So I feel like that's kind of a nice thing to have in our back pocket. And the only thing, you know, that concerns me, obviously, is we still need to replace town hall. And so, you know, I understand that we're kicking the can down the road a few years, but I think ultimately listening to the public is worthwhile. And I think, you know, once they see some improvements happening that they've requested, that they prioritize, then we may get more support for some of the other initiatives as well.
Okay. David?
Yeah, I think option 2 is a better fit for Basalt also. You know, with the housing crisis, and as Elise pointed out last week, this is just more appropriate, I think, for the condition that we're in. We're still taking care of infrastructure. There's still deep utility work in addition to all the amenities. So we're still getting kind of a good balance there. And then a stronger consensus in the community is, I think, option 2 is going to have rings. So I'm supportive of that also.
I mean, originally I was for going with what the committee recommended, but at the end of the day, we as a council have to sell this. The most important thing is that we have a unified front, so the entire public sees that and knows that every one of us is behind it. So if this is where everybody's comfortable with, I'm totally on board with it.
Yeah, and I mean, I really, after the last meeting, I felt a little, you know, I felt like, you know, affordable housing is one of those things that is driving so many decisions in our community right now. And, you know, I had a childcare coalition meeting, and they can't get teachers. And then, you know, I went to Valley Lumber on Saturday and on Sunday, and they're closed because of staffing issues. And then you go to a restaurant and I'm waiting forever, and they come out and they apologize, but they just don't have enough wait staff to deal with it. And so I don't think this problem's going away. So to me, I was trying to find a way to get more affordable housing funds, and it really seemed like, you know, the Basalt streetscape was one of those where I look at that's a perfect example of a property, like of a project that can have different funding methods to make happen. And it's something that I think will, you know, when you start hearing about utilities that are 60 to 80 years old, and you go, wow, if we have a major issue, then we're gonna be stuck with something in the future that could be even bigger. So solving that, you know, I've been going back and forth on the term, but I feel that if we could get more funding towards this initiative at such a low interest rate, when it's pretty much amazing that we can get under 2% right now, and if we can keep our payback to what we're proposing and what we're dealing with right now for 5 more years, and we can get, you know, $3 million more, I think, or 2.5, or whatever that was. I do believe that, you know, after thinking about it at first, I was like, oh, we should just stick with what that was, and I'm like, no, maybe we should go for the 25 years, and because then we'll get these projects done. And, you know, I do believe $6 million, you know, after looking at what we could do with that for affordable housing. And I talked to people, and after that meeting, I had a few conversations, and I think people just get it now. They don't need a specific project. They get it, and because it's affecting everyday life, and I don't think it's going to get magically better. So what I'm in favor of is option 2, which is adding Midland and taking out Town Hall, adding more for affordable housing, and I'm also in favor of, you know, going with the 25 years.
So far, we're 5 for 5, because I'm
You have 2
Can I
people
just-
online.
Can I just make a quick,
I'm way in the option 2 camp here, so we got 5 supporting votes for, or did,
can I quickly respond to something that Glenn said? I appreciate what you said, Glenn, and one of my, you know, kind of rationales too for supporting this newer proposal is we do have to sell it, and it's a yes or no vote. I don't mean to aim this at you directly,
No,
but I'm just responding to your comment. You know, it's a yes or no vote, and so, you know, if the public doesn't support it, it's not like you can have some funds and you can put it towards some things. It's just like black or white. So I want to make sure that whatever we put forward has the most likelihood of success, whatever that looks like.
No line item veto. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. And then after the last meeting, I was really struggling with it, and something that kind of stuck in my mind was actually something that Gary said about how he would like to see a net zero town hall, but that might require additional funds. And I've been thinking about that and thinking about, you know, green initiatives. We have stated that we have a climate emergency. We need to be doing more in that realm. And so to my mind, if we were going to move forward with the town hall, I think that we should be aiming for something like some really high level, maybe not net zero. There are other measurements out there, other ways to determine whether the town hall is, you know, truly environmentally sound. So I don't want to like put a label on it, but I do think that one benefit of waiting a few years is to really look a little bit deeper into all of the technologies that are available, solar passive design, all of that kind of good stuff, and really do that amazing, like, first, you know, of its kind, you know, world-class town hall that we can really be proud of, and, you know, that other communities can be looked to as an example.
yeah, and we have a lot of options available to us on Town Hall. We still own an attractive parcel of land across the road. We have this building, we have the old library. I mean, we've got some things to work on, and we'll have the luxury of time where we can work at this and really refine a plan and come forward with a great option, and we'll figure out how to finance it. But this does feel like the correct 3 projects to glean out of the public involvement process that we fashioned. So, like to hear from Bill Infante and Ryan Slack. So if you guys know particular order, if you could care to weigh in, we'd love to have you join the conversation.
I would concur with what everyone else has said. Option 2 is, I think, is going to be the best for the town in the long run. I really think we do need to tackle the utilities on Midland, and yeah, so I support option 2 and getting it done.
Thanks, Ryan. Mr.
Yep.
Bill?
And for my 2 cents, I think, again, the pivotal question is in part what we use the money for, but we also have the predicate question of, do we want to issue $17 million into the market? And I think the answer to that would have to be a resounding yes from conversations that I had with Ryan, Christie, and Bruce, and with others in New York. The timing is good, the rates are good, and the advice was, more or less, take what you can get because the times may not be this good in the future. And so I think that the notion of asking voter approval on a higher level of funding is completely appropriate and defensible at this point. How we use it, I also like the 3 projects. I think the sequencing of doing Midland Streetscape before Town Hall makes an enormous amount of sense. To have good, solid infrastructure lying beneath our future town hall whenever that may be built. And of course, I think it's going to be far more attractive to our public, who have strongly indicated a desire to see Midland Streetscape executed in order to reinvigorate the downtown drive business, and our businesses have got to be one of our concerns. So I agree with the 3. The only thing I would hazard is that we not put ourselves in a straitjacket and commit to fixed dollar amounts. We may find out that streetscape costs more or less. Same for green initiatives. We may find that we want to spend more because enormously attractive projects come towards us, or we may find that different amounts may be more valuable for affordable housing. So to the extent that we're not asking the voters to approve a fixed dollar amount for any of those 3 projects, I would hazard that we leave the language a little bit more flexible to give us those options to best respond to public need. And I know that this probably sounds like it contradicts my earlier positions of looking for greater specificity, but I think under the circumstances, the fact that we are moving to advance projects that the public has clearly said they want should be the most critical part of our messaging and the talking points that we deliver. So yes, I'm in favor.
And so, Bill, that brings up, it's pretty clear. I just want to clear it with you guys that there are no fixed amounts.
That's right.
Right.
And we have the estimates of what the projects cost, and so we want to make sure we capture those. But, it's possible that Midland Avenue, if at the end of the day you have a savings from what's anticipated, then you can either use that for more affordable housing or green initiatives, or, as Elise pointed out earlier, you can repay some of the bonds earlier. And so, but I think we're going into this with these dollar amounts just in a really prudent way. And, I think with Phil's work, I think you all can be confident that, we've got the costs captured, and, we're not going to find ourselves with a shortfall.
And there was a 30% contingency on Midland Streetscape, correct, Phil?
Yes, Counselor, that's accurate.
Okay.
That is accurate, yes.
Yeah, so that's pretty comfortable you think?
I do, understanding the current market, our concerns regarding labor and materials, I do think that's appropriate at this stage for really, let's say, concept design.
So, question for Christie, probably. So in modeling our revenue that we may realize from keeping the 5.9 mils in place, does it anticipate appreciation in the real property tax assessed valuation base, or is the modeling predicated on present value and just carries that forward, or is there some kind of escalation which has got to be, you know, if the past is any indication, that would, you know, be something that, you know, we would probably benefit from?
That's a really great question, Bill. Really, the equation's very simple. Our two prior bond questions asked for a total of $950,000 per year in repayment costs for those bonds, and so we're moving that dollar amount forward, the $950,000.
see.
Yeah, so we're not really tying that to a mill levy rate. We're not tying that to a specific, you know, dollar per 100,000 in assessed valuation or anything. We're just saying the amount of taxes that we're going to receive are the same as what we've received in the past.
So this is like a mill levy override. I mean, if we realize spectacular growth in the assessed valuation base, that mill levy may go down just to, if we're just maintaining a constant income stream, that the mill levy could bounce around. It can't exceed 5.9 mils, but it could go down if we have a, you know, a real significant increase in the assessed valuation base.
Yeah, based upon the housing values and the recent history of things, it hasn't been reassessed since a lot of that has occurred.
Yeah.
So if everything else stayed the same with where it is today, it would go down. But of course, it always depends on your reassessment every 2 years and where it's at that moment in time.
Yeah.
But the trend right now is saying that the bond rate, mill levy rate would go down. I would agree.
And Mr. Mayor, just one follow-up to that. Exactly as Christie said, that mill levy will be set at what's necessary to create that amount of revenue of 950. So it could go up, depending, but it will most likely go
Have a
down based on
downturn, yeah.
valuations. It's an exemption from Tabor to be able to adjust it. So just wanted to clarify that.
Is that
point.
clear to the voters that, you know, if we have some swoon, black swan kind of event, that this mill levy may have to be adjusted upward to maintain the constant, you know, bond payment?
Well, I think what they, based on the ballot question, they know it's going to be $950,000 of what's necessary to fund $950,000 every year, and
Okay.
kind of where we're at, that seems to be going to, as Christie said, projected to be low over time.
Okay. I'm good with it, but just want to make sure we're clear.
So is everyone good with the 25 years? I think Ryan and Bill were on line, but are we all good with the 25?
Yeah,
It makes sense.
I'm reading that we got 7-0 gone here, which is pretty good. You can't do much better than that, so.
I think it's great that, you know, that we're taking the time to figure out what to do on this. And I know, you know, we had a lot of participation from the community as part of the committee. And I know the committee pulled out town hall. And I know that, but one thing is, the committee, you know, saw that facility needs, and town hall was number one. And I don't want to take away anything for all the time the committee put into this, but you know, the reality is the committee also said, number one, affordable housing. Community, number one, affordable housing. The survey, number one, affordable housing. And then green initiatives were number two in all those. And the only flip-flop was the public said Midland Streetscape, and the committee, who had more good information, picked town hall. And they're both necessary projects. I won't be on council after this, but I hope you guys continue to push town hall into the future.
You're gonna be the guy up on the screen talking to us.
They'll be razzing us.
You know, if you keep on doing Zoom, I'll do it.
Okay.
It'll be great.
Well, and let's not forget too that, you know, there are some efforts as part of Midland Streetscape that could be considered green initiatives. Those don't need to be mutually exclusive either. It won't be energy per se, Or it could be, I mean, maybe we change out the lighting to something, you know, that's more energy efficient, but, you know, stormwater, bioswales, drainage, all those things, you know, there's opportunity there for green initiatives. It's just not in the traditional
Green infrastructure.
green infrastructure, exactly. So it's a possibility, it's just not in the traditional, like, energy efficiency and renewable energy category.
So cool. Well, I think we got it.
Yeah.
You know,
You guys comfortable?
pleased to hang out, but, you know, I just thank everybody. This is a great council to work with. I just feel great about we've got a lot of baseball left in the next couple of years and, you know, lots more issues to go, but I think if we keep communicating with one another and keep open minds and get to work, there's not much we can't do here.
So, and this is the first time we're doing something that is above and beyond what we usually do.
Yeah.
Because the pan and fork was something that we just had to finally deal with. But this is something that's forward-looking, and the master plan, we're solving, we're potentially, you know, dealing and working to a vision. And it's so fun to work on this, and that's why I'm happy everyone was able to take the time to kind of really think about what you wanted to do here, because this is really the first time in a long time Basalt's able to look forward, and really, I am very, very excited to go to the voters and try to talk to this and get them to support this, because it's just, it'll give us this jump start. It's not gonna solve the affordable housing problem, but it's gonna, you know, make a dent, and green initiatives, and these are things that the community visions and sees in the future, and it's so fun to be working on them. So, thank you guys.
Anyone else?
I agree with Gary, it's just nice to be doing some proactive work here instead of reactive work.
Yeah.
That was definitely like a recurring theme in some of the comments in the master plan, so.
Yeah.
You know, not only are we listening to our voters in terms of, you know, what we put forward in this ballot language, but also listening to our voters in terms of, you know, identifying some of the problems that have existed in Basalt and trying to move past them, so I'm pretty pleased with that.
Great.
You are adjourning us?
Beg your pardon?
You can adjourn us.
Oh. I think I will exercise the authority to adjourn the meeting, so thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
You
everybody.
guys.